Hey, Don Carr here, and I've got Dr. Z and Alan Phillips on the line, and we're talking about the new CAZ45 amp from Dr. Z Amps. It's a collaboration between these two guys, and I could not be happier to have both of them together. This is awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
Man, this is, great stuff. Great stuff for sure. The amp is killer. It sounds amazing. So much fun to play. You know, and to me, that's one of the great things is like when you get an amp that's fun to play, you know, it just makes you want to keep playing.
Yeah, that was one of the things that Alan had said when we were doing our prototypes back and forth. Mm-hmm. It was like, man, it's just so much fun. I don't want to stop playing. It's so easy to play and so fun to play.
Yeah.
That was certainly one of the first comments. And then I've heard this same response from every player that's plugged into it. So great that it turned out that way. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah, it sure did. Also, the other thing that's great to me about it is that it retains the feel and sound and character, whatever volume level. I mean, obviously, you're at a quieter volume level, you're not driving the speakers as hard, but that's really the only difference.
Yeah, I think that's what makes this amp unique to other high gain amps. Its ability to be able to play almost whisper quiet in a bedroom or on a stadium stage, you know, it'll do, and everything in between.
Right.
So that's what kind of brings it into a whole different kind of segment of tube amplification.
Sure.
If you will.
Sure. Yeah. And it's, you know, it's a single channel amp with a with a very specific type of sound, but man, you get so much variety within that type. How did this collaboration even start? How did you guys meet? What was the idea behind this?
The genesis of this it goes back probably, I don't know, was it 2009, something like that, 2010? We both had a dealer, a really good dealer for a long time. It was like my best dealer. I think it was Mike's best dealer at the time as well. And he could sell anything. He did really well. And all of a sudden, it started to go bad. And then the dealership went under, but some not so fun things happened. Like he started to take full payments on amplifiers that he wasn't even giving us the orders for. So he was taking full money from customers and things like that. And I was really concerned because I was down several $1,000s. And I called Mike up just out of the blue. I'm like, hey, dude, what are we going to do about this? and we talked about, because what we were concerned about was like, you've got customers right now that have paid good money for a product that has your brand name on. Mm-hmm. And we have to do something to help them. So we talked and we kind of came up with a plan on what we can do. I mean, clearly we can't cover the full cost, but we can try and help them out as much as possible. And that's kind of how the collaboration happened. It was a very open, honest conversation. You know, we've talked many, many, many times. Mike talked to me a lot when I was having problems with the business end of my business. He gave me some great advice. And, you know, he gave me the honest advice. He said, I mean, he was one of the first people to say, why don't you call it a day, Alan? Why don't you call it a day and just go and be an engineer? I mean, and that's what you want to hear. You know, that's great advice. Yeah. You know, I mean, I can design a killer amp, but, you know, running a business and building them myself and everything else, it was just hassle. So Mike's been like honest with me, which is very rare, very, very rare, you know, between business owners. So that's my take on it. That's kind of how we met.
Man, that is great. Because that's just an honest, open friendship. I mean, seriously, that's two guys trying to help each other out. I think that's amazing.
Right, and from that, our collaboration grew. You know, because it started with honesty and truthfulness between two of us, and you have to understand too, Don, that this is a small fraternity. You know, there's not a whole lot of amp builders in the universe. You know, that build vacuum tube amps in their house. So it's a small fraternity, and you know, we care for each other, and we try to do the right thing, and because of that, you know, it's really helped our relationship grow.
Wow, that is great. So so the idea for the amp then specifically, how did that start?
Well, you know, I mean, I believe, Alan, that I kind of approached Alan. I kind of waited a little bit, and Alan's got these incredible design chops. I mean, he's an amazing engineer, and to just show you that, I mean, he's designing robotics, right now. I mean,
Yeah.
such a high level of electronic design. So, I knew that Alan's designs were really, really, really top level. And being an owner of a business, I certainly pay attention to the internet and the forums. And I would follow threads about Carolan amps,
Mhm.
and his customer base was just so loyal and so loving. I mean, they loved the amps that they got from Alan. And I'm reading this and saying, man, there's something to this. So as time went on, and we both started, our relationship kept growing. I kind of had an idea. I said, Alan, I've had a difficult time trying to design a high gain amp, and it's something that Dr. Z amps has not really done to any great degree. Basically, Dr. Z amps are more in the vintage, minimum knobs, minimum kind of amp with just a great sound, and that was the kind of customer base that was attracted to my products. But I thought, let's get a broader paintbrush, man. Let's open it up to some more people that
Right.
that want higher gain. So I approached Alan. I said, Alan, if you can design an amp for me, I'll build it in my facility, and we'll do a collaboration, and we'll build a great amp, because I've got the facility and the employees to be able to produce, and you've got the ideas, some great design ideas. Let's put them together. So that was basically how it all started. Alan sent me a couple of pages of a great design. I sat down and cobbled it together. And then we sent prototypes back and forth to each other, and Alan played them and made suggestions. And then the design kind of evolved to where it is right now.
Wow, interesting.
And it, COVID didn't help.
No,
Alan and I have been at this since actually last November. So it's been a year. And for me, I mean, that's an eternity.
Right.
I mean, Dr. Z, I'm used to throwing a couple of amps a year, coming out with new designs. And to be kind of, stopped by all of the stuff with COVID and the shutdowns and all of that kind of extended it. But, maybe in a way it was a good thing, Alan, maybe going a little slower. We made sure that everything was right, a little bit more attention to the detail of the amp and fixing it. So maybe in the long run, it was better. I don't know. We'll see.
Definitely.
But it certainly is a great product as far as it is right now. I have to say.
Yeah, that's the deal. The proof is in the pudding, as they say. I mean, whatever the process was and however long it took, at this point, hey, you guys got a great amp.
Thank you, Don. And you played them all, buddy. So you bring a lot of experience to that comment. That's for sure.
Well, thanks. Yeah. I mean, I definitely do. It is interesting because this amp, like you say, it's a unique design from the ground up, right? And you guys obviously, like you said, you had a basic direction you were going. You wanted a high gain amp, and you knew that Alan was great at designing high gain amps. So
Yes.
you had a template, and then of course you collaborated. How exactly did you guys collaborate? Was it, like you were shipping the amp back and forth, and
Yeah, I think it shipped quite a lot of times, didn't it? Different prototypes. Well, stepping back a little bit, so I gave Mike a schematic. I said, what I want you to do is use all of your components, and I want you to use everything that you use right now and in your other amps. I'm not going to tell you what resistor to use. I'm not going to tell you what capacitor to use. I want you to use what you're using right now, because that's part of the tonal fingerprint of your amps. And especially the transformers. We went through various configurations. Like, it started out with a solid state effects loop, and that was okay. It was all right. It did the trick, but it wasn't so great with certain effects. And I'm like, well, I've got a really good tube-based loop here that I kind of perfected probably 10 years ago that will probably work really well in this. So I didn't even know Mike was doing it. The next one turned up with this effects loop in. I'm like, oh, great, it's got the effects loop in. And yeah, that made a big difference. So just like Mike was saying, the last couple of times that the amp shipped around, it was for like minutiae kind of things, just deep in the details, where we would like obsess over a value of one resistor or something. But they made that's kind of the details that made the difference. And Mike made a change to the design that at first I was like, no, dude, no, please don't do that. Don't do that. And he went, just trust me. Just trust me on this. I'm like, all right, I'll trust you. And it was like kind of the best thing that he could have done for the amp. It was, and it was the way that aggression control came out. That aggression control started life as a master volume, and now it's not a master volume.
Not at all.
The master volume's gone further down the signal chain, so that allows you an extra gain stage control. So you've got control of the signal coming between the last of the gains, the last of the overdrive stages and the phase inverter, which you wouldn't normally have. You wouldn't normally be able to bring that volume up at that point and then bring the volume to the power amp lower after it. So you can drive the phase inverter a lot harder, which gives us a more aggressive tone. And it was just beautiful how it turned out, because it isn't. I mean, he changed the circuit a little bit on that, and it isn't a master volume anymore. It is literally an aggression control. It's literally the amount of push you put into the phase inverter. So that was a cool control. That's not mine. That's his.
No kidding. Well, okay, so all right, well, perfect, because that was one of the things I was going to ask about, because the two things. Of course, talking layman here, but the two things right away that caught my eye was like, wait a minute, sensitivity and aggression. And then once when I saw where they were on the flow, the sensitivities first and the aggressions after the tone stack, I was like, okay, well, wait a minute. So this is kind of front end, back end sort of thing. And man, so the aggression control is before the effects loop, right? Because it seems like when you crank it up, like it drives the effects loop a little bit harder too.
Yes,
so
it feeds the effects loop. Yes.
Right, feeds the but that's amazing, because that's like that's how much is how much you're pummeling the power section, which is great. I mean, that's kind of what you want. That's the sound and the feel of the amp at a louder volume, and then with the master being post phase inverter where it is, it has more of a power scaling kind of feel to it.
I mean, I had a historic hatred of post phase inverter master volumes for good reasons. Technically, they're not good. In most cases, technically, they cause such a mismatch on the phase inverter and cause a lot of tonal anomalies. But this wasn't that. This wasn't the normal, because it was a cathode bias amp. It was basically a voltage divider going into the power tubes, which is a lot better than a PPI, a standard PPI, which affects the feedback ratios and everything. So this was different. This doesn't affect the negative feedback from the power amp. It just lowers the volume going into the power tubes, literally.
Yeah.
At the last point you possibly could.
I find that the post phase inverter master volume, which is kind of the level control, basically a kind of a volume scaler, if you will, works in a cathode biased amp so well. In a fixed bias amp, that's where the difficulty comes, because you've got DC voltage riding on the grid signal that you're altering, and now you have to decouple that DC signal from the AC signal, and by decoupling it, you're altering the tone, you're adding capacitance, you're changing it slightly and to some degree, maybe even majorly. And that's why I've never found it to work that well.
No,
but in a cathode biased amp, it pops in and it fits like a glove. It's amazing how well it works.
I was wrong.
Well, wow. But I think, Alan, most of your amps were fixed bias, I believe.
Yeah, most of them were. The R series models were cathode biased, but that would have been a cool feature on those.
Yes. Yeah, it works really well on that.
Yeah, I mean, already, what's killing me right now, seriously, is listening to you two guys talk about this. Okay, so Alan, your effects loop made such a huge difference on one end, and then the fact that you're using a cathode bias amp with the post phase inverter master. I mean, these are the tiny little details that take this amp from being like a great amp to an amazing amp. You know what I mean? And this is the collaboration stuff that is just incredible. I love this. Wow.
And thank you.
Bravo.
And the thing behind the scenes is that Alan and I work so well together with this because there's not an ego. There's not it's got to be this way because this is the way I want it.
Right.
We were able to, as two engineers, converse and talk about our ideas and try them and compare them and openly try to see what is better. And if it's better, let's use it. I came from a background of, I worked for General Electric for 15 years. And, God, GE's one of the largest, corporations in the world at one time.
Right.
And they had it down pat, man. They knew how to manufacture stuff.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I learned my manufacturing chops.
Yeah.
And Alan too, being in an engineering environment, you go to engineering meetings and you're sitting with engineers and you're bouncing ideas off each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how collaborations happen. And that's how designs become better and better and better. And Alan and I had that communication. We were able to talk to each other as two equal engineers saying, well, how about this or how about that? And we were both open to it.
Right.
And we both brought those in. And I've done collaborations with many people. So I've got some experience with collaborations.
Oh, yeah.
With Ken Fisher, with artists, with Joe Walsh, with Brad Paisley. And, and every one of them is kind of unique in a way. When you're dealing with an artist in an artist collaboration, boy, it's tough because they have different ways of explaining what they want. And it's not technical. It's, colors and, different sounds that they hear, and they try to explain it to you in a way that they understand. But technically, it's kind of hard for me to understand or to figure out what it is that I have to alter to give them what they're asking for.
Right.
So those are tough. And, and Joe Walsh was just notorious for that. I mean, he would call me up in the middle of the night, whatever, with an idea, that he had. And Joe's got great ideas. He is an engineer as well. And, he's a ham operator. So, he knows electronics, but still he's got that artist flair and trying to explain the sounds that he wants. And being able to interpret that is difficult. Alan and I have constantly been able to, we get on the phone and we're on the phone for 2 hours. It's just this long and involved conversation. And we just keep going down the path and trying to improve, talk about our different disciplines and understandings. And we learn from each other. I've learned so much from Alan. It's amazing. I've been doing this for 33 years, but I constantly learn.
Yeah.
And if you can't, you're lost. So yeah, I can't wait for the next and the next and the next design that Alan and I do, because I know it's just going to get better and better and better as we continue to collaborate.
Yeah.
But let's get this one out first.
Wow, man. Okay, you've already got my appetite wet, so it's like the next one and the next one. Yes, please. Please put me on the list there.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow, what a treasure trove of information we have here from you guys. This is incredible. Man, this amp is just, again, I can't say enough good about it. I can't say enough good about it. It's so great to see you guys working together, and thank you so much for doing this, for a meeting like this and, sharing your information, and I really appreciate it, man. Continued success to both of you, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. I would be amiss if I didn't mention Lisa, who is Alan's wife, who is the kind of go-between and the collaborator between the two of us. She takes the notes, she makes sure Alan sees the things that I'm saying, and I get the things that Alan's saying. And she does an incredible job of melding the two of us together and our ideas together. So, Lisa, thank you, honey, for all the work that you have done.
Oh, wow.
Behind the scenes to make this happen.
Oh, yeah. She's a little bit more on top of the email than I am.
Yeah, she does a great job.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks again, guys. Really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you.